Good afternoon, everyone. This is Krishnamurthy, working with IMTMA as a Senior Director and Head of Training Vertical. I am glad to invite all of you for this panel discussion. The theme of the discussion is about bridging the skill gap between the institutions and the industry and how to make the engineers industry ready. India is the fastest growing economy in the world today, and we also enjoy the benefit of the demographic dividend, that is young people ready to join the mainstream of working population in the coming decades. However, we face three major contradictions. Number one, industry is always experiencing a shortage of talented and trained engineers, isn't it? And admission in the engineering colleges, on the other hand, is lowering year after year. And third one is, again, the placement challenges the colleges and the students are facing because the skills are not aligned to the industry expectations. While the need of collaboration between industry and institution is much talked about and debated in many of the forums, what is doable and what needs to be acted upon now, let us hear from the industry experts and academic experts available here with us. And I am glad to introduce the speakers today. We have with us on my left Mr. Vinayak Kamath, Chief Executive Officer of Auto CNC Machining Limited. It is the group company of S Micromatic Group, and the company is engaged in the manufacturing of engineering components. And we welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
And Mr. M.N. Shivaprasad, General Manager of Education and Training at TVS Motors, Hosur. We welcome you, Mr. Shivaprasad. And we have with us towards my right, I have Dr. Mohan Babu, Principal of BMS Institute of Technology, Bangalore. Welcome you, sir. And then again I have Professor Dr. Vijay Kumar, Professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering from Jyoti Institute of Technology. Welcome you, sir. Before I hand over the stage and invite their views, let me brief about IMTMA's training initiatives. IMTMA, that is Indian Machine Tool Manufacturers Association, has established technology centers at Bangalore as well as at Pune with the support of member industries as well as other industries in order to play a crucial role in skill development across the country. And the state-of-the-art training facilities include CNC machines, CAD/CAM CAE, CMM, metrology equipments, robotics, automation training lab, and all the other accessories to impart skill-based training, in other words, hands-on training in all the aspects of manufacturing technology. And using these facilities, the training programs are organized at IMTMA, applicable both for industry working professionals as well as faculty and students from educational institutions. 3 exclusive courses are being organized for making the engineers industry ready in 3 different domains, like one is finishing school in production engineering, the second one is automation and robotics, third one is on machine tool design. Every month IMTMA is organizing close to 15 to 20 training programs pan India, and every year 200 plus training programs are being organized throughout India, and 3,000 working professionals and students are getting trained by IMTMA. I am sure it is a good benefit to the industries in the entire India. So with this intro, let us move on to the discussion, and let me seek the views from Mr. Vinayak Kamath on this aspect. Always the industry says that fresh engineers are not meeting industry expectations. So, what are your views, please?
Thanks, Krishnamurthy.
Welcome.
Engineering is a lifetime journey. Generally, the students who come out, they think that their 4-year degree is just enough and they stop learning. This is the biggest challenge what we see. We expect them to know that, look, what they studied in 4 years is just a beginning. They were just introduced to concepts and they have to build it upon themselves. So this is one of the major thing what we are finding. Second thing is something to do with the syllabus itself. The syllabus is more of theory oriented, not much of a practical orientation is given to them. So the students who come out, they are not able to connect the theory with practice, and suddenly they get into a small sort of confusion. The third thing is more on the soft skills. The students who come out, although they are quite smart, intelligent, they are not able to communicate well, nor they have good writing skills in the form of an email or some technical things. So they don't know the etiquettes. They come into industry and they don't know that there is some dynamics in the industry. They need to know that, time management. These are some of the things which they need to improve upon. And other point which I'd like to highlight is engineering is basically applied science. So whenever they get into some problem, they should necessarily know that, look, there is some science behind it, and every problem has a scientific explanation. So they don't go more detailed into that, resulting in they come to a dead end and they say, okay, this is something I cannot handle it. And the last one is cultural shock. When they come into industries, they find the industries are far above them, or they are not able to understand how an industry works. So the technology, what they see in the industries is much higher than what they thought it would be. And suddenly they start blaming the colleges, telling that, look, college did not teach us this. Actually, it is up to them to understand how to link what the colleges thought and how to make it practically happen. Thank you.
Yeah. Shiva Prasad, yeah, would you like to add your views, please?
Yeah. Maybe for a while I'll share what we do in our company when with regards to the engineers when they join. And also we also have something called collaborative education program where we have the students joining TVS as early as 10th, 12th. And we have collaborative education with the institutes, and then they go through the institute. So I'll try to, how we do it, I'll sort of try and explain to the panel. So like industry ready, like Mr. Krishnamurthy, he spoke about being industry ready. So what is this industry ready? So industry ready is nothing but, like, for example, we call that as role ready. So role involves, to play any role in the company, they require competencies. What we have tried to do is, there are functional competencies and professional competencies, both are required. When it comes to the functional competency, there also, in order to play a role, someone needs to have a core competency within functional, supporting competency, core competency and supporting competency. So like, for example, suppose if I am a design engineer, while I try to learn more about the product engineering and how to design strength, stiffness, all these things, at the same time, manufacturing knowledge becomes very, very important when I come to the drawing table. So the manufacturing knowledge becomes the supporting competency for a design engineer, and the product engineering becomes the core competency. So why I say professional skills, being engineers, what happens is, like, we are all, right from the go, we all are individual contributors. Like, I study well, I do well, I get a good marks. So this happens throughout our journey, right from school, college, engineering, this continues to happen. But in the organization, it is not how much you alone have to do. And in the industry, it is not a closed book, like in 3 hours, there is a question paper, and in 3 hours, there is no book is given to you, no internet, no calculator, no phone. It is not that way. In real life, problems are entirely different. In the real life, you have everything. You have phone, you have computers, you have everything with you. And another, the need for professional skills. As an engineering student, what happens is, we never go and seek support from others. I feel, I have let down myself if I go and ask some doubt with somebody. But if I am playing the role of a design engineer, if I am designing a part which requires something about plastic, something about say casting, something about machining, no, there is nothing wrong and going to somebody who specializes in these areas. This doesn't come very naturally to the people. So this is why I brought the point of core competency and supporting competency. While I continue to learn more and more in my core competency, I have to start looking at seek support. I should have that kind of an interpersonal skills that are developed, so that now I can go and without hesitation I must go and approach. I can approach anybody. This doesn't come naturally to the engineers, as I have seen. So what we do in TVS Motor is their entire development happens around these functional competency development, again core competency and supporting competency, and the professional skills, where they learn rigor in execution. Because as a student, I never had as a student, no, time is okay, it's granted, but at work it is not so. Always, time is very important. If I have to release some drawing on time, it has to be released on time. Otherwise, it will have a huge business impact at a later stage. So these are all some of the things that we try to do. Maybe after a while, we will come back and talk about what we do in our colleges after I listen to professors.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Shivaprasad. I think nicely you highlighted about the collaborative education approach, what is being followed at TVS Motors. And now let us hear from our experts from the academic front. Dr. Mohan Babu, please share your views on how colleges can meet the industry expectations, what could be done, what are the doable things, please kindly share your views.
Yeah, good afternoon to you all.
Afternoon.
I am very much in agreement with my industry colleagues on one side, but I only differ in the fact that this problem is not just a micro level problem. The whole problem is to be addressed at a macro level, starting from macro level to micro level. If employability is not a problem elsewhere in other countries, why should it be a problem here in India is the question. If you look at that, it's very difficult to point out at any one community or one party or one group of people that they are responsible. If you want, I'll give you an example. Look at what happened between 2009 to 2015 in India. In fact, the number of engineering seats in India was 9 lakh in 2009 and it became 18 lakhs in 2015. That means during that period, the economic growth, our growth rate of GDP in our country was about 5.5 on an average, but the number of seats increased at the rate of about 14 to 15%. What happens to this? This resulted in overcapacity of the education sector itself. Now, what happens to our education sector? Naturally, excepting the top-notch colleges, right? Most other colleges will have to run their show only with about 40 to 50% of the strengths. Where the money comes from to the colleges? Because although we say education is a service, but to run the service you need money, right? Naturally, one thing is the fees has to be reduced in order to attract students. Many colleges did it. I'm not talking of our top colleges like BMS IT or Aramaya, BMS College of Engineering, etc. I'm talking about general colleges in India. What happens here is, they have to reduce the fees on one side to attract people. Already they have less strength in the classes. Naturally, the resources available for them to improve the quality of laboratories, hire high quality teachers, just not available. What are we talking about then? That is one thing, if government. Second thing is, most of these colleges were from either political parties or whatever it is. Naturally, they want to increase the admission. They want to pressurize the government in order to lower the entry cutoff percentage. Students with 40% are entering the colleges. What do you expect from them? 45%. How do you expect them to be highly qualified and industry ready? Very difficult it is. Government has got its own part. Universities have got its own part. You know what is happening in university? In India, we have a culture of having affiliated colleges to university. University has to actually have a curriculum with all 200 colleges or 600 colleges have to follow. Naturally, there are colleges which are very, very poor to very, very best. And it is a compromised curriculum. It's not so easy. And second, but it doesn't mean that they should not change. They should change, but this is the situation. On the other hand, the pass percentage, that's 35 out of 100. University fixes it. Naturally, a person with 35% and becoming a graduate, what can he deliver in the industry? There are serious issues with the industry, serious issues with government. Industry, I'll tell you, for example. We, as industry, if they want high quality inputs materials from a supplier, they station their engineer in the supplier, they make sure that the process followed in the supplier place is excellent, and they ensure that the quality of input that they get is very good. But human resource is an excellent input, but why are companies not coming to this institution to design the curriculum or to help us deliver the better education or help us evaluate the students properly? Where in fact we talk in 100 forums about the industry institute interaction, but hardly anything is coming forward concretely. This is what I'm seeing. And look at parents, whether the student is interested in engineering or not, they push the students or peer pressure. And I have personally seen those students for whom the engineering is not their cup of tea, at first year about 5 to 7% of the students drop out. And whoever cannot drop out, and cannot even accept the pressure, they commit suicides. Many of the students actually, if they can't do both of them, they somehow stay over there with, just pass marks.
The dropout is after first year.
Yes, after first year. Now what do you do with these kinds of situations? Parents are responsible, students themselves are responsible, teachers are responsible. That means almost any sector you point out which is contributing to engineering education, you can easily blame. But now academicians are here, industrialists are here, we can talk something useful. What we can do now at this stage to improve the quality of education. I think we can be authoritative persons to talk about the quality of education in engineering colleges and what needs to be done in order to make students more employable. In fact, I can give so many things. For example, industry internship is one of the flagship event in our institution, wherein more than 2,500 students have been sent on industry internship at least 1 month each in the last 2 years. That's a big scale. Not just students. You will wonder, BMSRT is the first college to send all their faculty members to industry internship. They undergo industry internship. For the last 4 years, they are going over
Commendable.
there.
Yeah.
This is what we are trying to do. Plus, open courses. We have what is called as, you please stop me when I am so sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
About internship, we will come for
We'll
one
come
more
back
review.
later.
Yeah.
We have industry agency called as CoCubes and so on. What these people do is, they are the recruiting agencies for so many industries, so many companies. They know what kind of questions are to be designed to students in order to recruit them for the companies. That means they also know the gaps. We have engagement with them to know where our students are lacking, because we ask them to conduct an employability test right from first year itself. Every year we conduct. So that at the end of that particular examination, we know where our student is weak. Is it in communication, logic, arithmetic, or maybe domain, coding skills, wherever it is. Then what happens is, we will hire the training agencies. And hiring training agencies is so done that students will choose who should train them. It's not the administrators.
So thank you, sir.
Yeah,
So
they do.
employability skills right from the first year, you thought
Yes.
you are addressing to or suggesting
Yes. We'll
to
come
be
back to it.
monitored. Yeah. Thank you. We'll hear from Professor Vijay Kumar, sir, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Krishnamurthy.
Yeah.
Now, the topic that we're dealing with is a huge problem, if you ask me really, because as my colleague here, the principal, just said, it's a massive thing that has snowballed. The problem here is not just with universities or educational colleges. The problem has started much, much earlier within the education system itself. In fact, I always tell my students to have an open mind. We were talking about one of our TVS colleague just now said that students do not or hesitate a lot in asking questions. In fact, the first thing that I tell them in the class is, no question is stupid, you can ask me any question. And they immediately open up. I think this is something that universities should encourage their faculty to say or share in the first class itself. Even before I start, I tell them, look, this is what my expectations from the students are, you've got to ask a lot of questions. And they open up immediately. Now coming to this employability, now there are two skills, like my colleague here, the industry colleague talked about core competencies and within that the functional competencies. Now there are two types of skills when you talk about, when you come to the university aspect, we call the hard skills, which is essentially the technical skills that the college naturally imparts. The other thing is soft skills. Now, the industry has been talking a lot about soft skills. Some people would like to call them as life skills, because those are the skills that remain with them for the life and they can keep on learning more and more. Now, many of the colleges I have observed, and you may correct me if I'm wrong, many of these colleges, in fact about 60 to 70% of the colleges go into this kind of training or soft skills training only when the students come into the perhaps 6th semester or later even in the 7th semester. And some colleges or some universities have thought about it and introduced it into the first semester itself. But the problem here is when you look at the entire scenario, everything is intertwined. In fact, if you look at the players or the actors, there are several. In fact, I have identified 7 players in this. And the principal just now talked about the government's role in it also. Now, the government's role, if you ask me, plays the primary role, in fact. It's got to be what I call a facilitator or an enabler, and their role starts from the school level itself. We were talking about the input, the quality of the input. And industry spends a lot of time, they do what is called as vendor management, they talk about raw material quality inspection and so on. But we do not have those kind of schemes up here. So we got to ensure that the people that come out of pre-university colleges, be it the science stream, which is essentially the science stream, that they're of good quality. And my colleague here was also talking about 35% students coming into the engineering stream, and what can we expect from them? As it is, they are not interested. In fact, there was this one girl in one of the colleges, she wanted to do psychology. And she came up to me somewhere in the third semester after having failed in Math 1 and Math 2. And she said, I want to do psychology or journalism. And I said, what can we do? She didn't have a dad. It was her mother thrust her into engineering. And it's been quite a few years since I was contact, but very recently I checked up her Facebook, and I believe she's married and she's dropped working. So you find a lot of such stories happening up there. In fact, the 7 players, if I can just relate, we have the student and you have the corporate. At one end you have the student, and the other end you have the corporate. And in between them, you have 5 other players or actors. One is the university there, wherein the students undergo this kind of improvement in them. And then we have the government, which we expect to play a much larger role. What they're doing now is definitely not sufficient. It's got to take a larger role. And then we have also the professional bodies. One such body is IMTMA, which is doing good work, in fact, but there are many more, like you have CII, you have the FKCII, you have IEEE, and IE Institution of Engineers, and there are many bodies like that. And then there are training organizations, and there are also assessment agencies, like my colleague here was talking about one called CoCubes. There are others like MeritTrack as well. So all of these people have got to get together and ensure that the quality of the student can be increased. But having said this, I think universities have got one conception totally wrong.
Professor, I think we need to be.
Yeah. Just 2 minutes. Just get back.
Ahead,
so the concept of customer. I think many universities, about 90%, if I am right, do not understand who a customer is. Many people say, many universities, many professors, many principals always think that the customer is the student because he pays the fees. That's in the industry. When you pay something and you get the product, and that's yours. But here, people say, okay, he's paying the fees, therefore he is a customer. Unfortunately, it is not so. The customer here isn't our student. It is, unfortunately or fortunately, he is to be identified right. The customer here is our corporate. The corporate is the one that is taking our products, the students, from the university. So students are not our customers. I think many of the universities have got this right in saying that the customer is not the student, the customer is our corporate, and it is for them that we are providing these products called students. So the next question comes as to what are students when they are in the university? Well, they are throughputs. You get the input there, and then they pay some fees in order to get churned out. And we work on them, they become the throughput, and we ensure that they meet the standards set by the corporate, and then we let them go. So in between the student and the corporate, there's much to be done, and I think these things cannot just be started at the university level. Got to start much earlier. Thank you. Sir.
Yeah, thank you, Principal Sir and Professor. Yeah, I think you highlighted about the macro picture, prevailing in the country, as well as Professor Vijay Kumar highlighted about the 7 major players where they who are linked with this existing situation. Well, we will hear the views from Mr. Shivaprasad on how to improve the employability, given the understanding that these are the prevailing situation in India. You cannot change any of the things tomorrow onwards. Given the situation in, what could be done to increase the employability?
Sure, I'll share our experiences. This is actually Professor Vijay Kumar. He nicely brought in the concept of the analogy of supply chain. As the in the chain, the colleges are the suppliers of talent to the organizations or to the industry. So what we have tried to do, we work very closely with few institutes for engineering education and also for retail education. We work very closely with few institutes. So what we have done here is, along with the entire thing, what I am telling is not created by TVS. It is co-created amongst TVS and the institutes. What we have done is we have started off based on the survey conducted, we have arrived at the program outcomes. These are all the higher outcomes. This is, we have tried to follow CDIO framework for this. And then we have sort of written down what are all the program outcomes. And then for that, what are all the course outcomes. And then we have sort of course to course, there is an alignment. We have developed the course map. And each course has its outcome. It is very properly deployed through a very structured instructional design methodology process. We have used like Bloom's taxonomy when it comes to, suppose if we write an outcome, it is written with the proper use of the Bloom's taxonomy for all the cognitive outcomes. If it is an affective outcome, we have tried to use Krathwohl taxonomy. I'm sure you are familiar with these terms. We have used, so one is how to write these outcomes, and every outcome we have tried to arrive at what is the appropriate teaching learning methodology. So this document is there for most of the outcomes. Then even the assessment also happens through based on these outcomes. Like once you write down the outcomes, the content, the learning methodology is based on the outcomes. Having written the outcomes, again the assessment is based on the outcomes. This is one portion of how we have tried to structure. The entire thing is co-created. It is not TVS creation, it is a co-creation. So along with that, what we have also learned from, like we have, the action learning is very, very important. See, how to give an immersive experience to the student is also very important. So the action learning projects are very, very vital. Action learning projects start right from the second semester of diploma or an engineering program. So that is because where I get to apply things. This is another concept that we have tried to do. So whatever I have said is all about the curricular activities, how we have structured the courses. So the whole program outcomes we have mapped against the curricular activities, co-curricular activities, and extracurricular activities. So when it comes to the co-curricular, we have created the outcomes, course, content, assessment, and all that. Extracurricular activities are the assignments they do. We have also learned from, see, every year we send many engineers for higher studies to the universities in Germany and UK and all that. One thing that we have learned from them is their assignments are very, very strong. See, like in a modular program, they will attend a 1-week program on industrial engineering or supply chain management, 1-week program. But next 1 month is going to be extremely tough for all these students. Because there are no classes, 1 week full. 1 week full, they complete the supply chain management or industrial engineering. Next 5 weeks, 6 weeks is the assignment. The assignments are so very tough. It requires, the students will be spending not less than, they may not be sitting in the university or institute. They will be spending not less than 15 hours a day on this. So these are all some of the things that we have seen are very effective because now they get to apply. They get to apply multiple disciplines. So these are all some of the things that we try to do. And then extracurriculars, they are in social work or all other things we have. So sorry, I think I
thank you. Thank you, Shiv Prasad. So Professor, how do you think IMTMA can play a role in faculty development programs and student development programs? Professor Vijay Kumar, please.
Well, IMTMA has already been doing good work. I have been working with IMTMA for the past 5-6 years, 4-5 years, I think. What it can probably do is create some more programs that are, well, looking at a group of students. They can probably create a team that can come to the university, interact with the college students, find out in which area they probably lack depending upon certain metrics that they would have decided based upon the industry inputs. And they can do some kind of an evaluation of the students, find out, which they're not doing now. Probably they can think about it because right now they have got some rote kind of programs. Of course, this is from the inputs through from their organization members, the industry that is, and then they come and deliver it, which is fair enough, which is good enough. But then what I would think that they can do is meet up with some of the students, find out which are the pain areas, the sore areas that students are finding difficult, and then pull up these students that have similar kind of a lacuna, and then devise a program for them. Probably that is something, I don't know, I mean,
sure.
You can probably think about it that way, I think.
Thank you. Would you like to add your views? Dr. Mohan Babu. Yeah, how IMTMA can play a role in towards faculty development as well as student development.
Yeah, it's not just IMTMA alone.
Yeah.
All industry bodies
Yeah,
like
industry
you,
bodies,
you will be participating not necessarily with single institutes like BMSIT or anything. I think you should work with university itself as such at the top level
University,
to draw up a broader strategy to help all the colleges, because in my perspective, about 93% of the workforce that goes to Indian industry is from the university affiliated institute, not from IITs or NITs. That means if you lose focus on this segment of the students, Indian industry's competency will come down, competitiveness will come down. It's very important for all the stakeholders to be very, very serious with these issues. Of course, as it happened in 1990s with industries, it is happening with education institutions, especially engineering now. There is going to be a big shakeout, and large number of institutions, ineffective institutions are closing down. And the market forces will take over. Finally, you will have, currently you have about 7.5 to 8 lakh admissions. The capacity will also come down to that once these ineffective colleges are eliminated. Then I think the resource problem would be partly addressed. By that time, in fact, I should share with my colleagues that there are lots of changes happening in the education sector also, keeping the employability in view. As you rightly said, most colleges have already adopted outcome-based education, designing starting from program educational objective to program outcome to CO to design the curriculum and the designing delivery methods, assessment and evaluation. Everything is happening, and it is a transition period actually. We can't expect all the things to happen overnight, but this is the time I would look forward to the industry to pitch in. I'll tell you a couple of things, very important. Industry, I should not blame, but they come to education institution to hire the students in 6th semester itself. As soon as a boy is assured of placement, he loses interest in 4th year.
That's, yeah,
And it becomes as if that we are giving him a degree for 3 years of study and not the 4th year. Who takes the responsibility for this? It's very important. Suppose if you put a condition that, okay, if you score 80% in final year, then my appointment is confirmed, then it is fine. It won't happen like that, it's not so easy. But fortunately, many institutions have realized how important their contributions to the society and industry should be, and they're working in that direction. And there are so many initiatives done in BMSIT. I just shared one or two, maybe a project-based learning which starts right from the first year itself to help them hands-on experience, industry visit. In fact, we have so many courses being offered by practitioners like you. You come and deliver. My teacher sits in your class and knows what is the practitioner's perspective is. Lots of things are happening over there. Not only in BMSIT, in many other colleges also. Only thing is, once the ineffective institutions are weeded out of this fray, then only the effective ones remain, and there will be competition among them. And the resources shouldn't be a problem by the time if I am to do this.
So those colleges who perform, then only they're only going to survive and continue. Yeah, that's a good point. For paucity of time, we are moving ahead. Mr. Kamath, please highlight about how IMTMA's bridge courses are helpful in making the engineers industry ready.
Yeah. One of the strong courses what IMTMA has done is in the finishing school. That I think is a very good course which basically fills out the blanks where the academia left and the industry wants. Over a period of time, IMTMA has really improved upon that. I always have this fundamental question, why IMTMA should do this? Why not the institutions themselves? Can the institutions not take this model out and have a 4-week program in your colleges so that you can just replicate what IMTMA does? Because IMTMA can turn out maybe 100, 200, 300 per year. But this country requires a lot of more engineers. I request the colleges to take this forward. Now going into the point what you gave me, we find students who undergo the finishing school or the design school, they are able to approach problems much better than what they would have done if they just came out of the colleges. Okay, so this is what is my take on that. Shiv Prasad, you'd like to add something?
Yeah.
You said that why can't education institution take over the role of IMTMA? Yes, it is possible. The resource is an issue, but I also have a solution here. We have been seeing the cooperative model in various sectors, oil sector, milk sector and so on. It's possible that education institutions can also get together to form a society, get all sophisticated equipment. On the basis of slots, we can always train our students also. That is possible. That will address both the resource issue as well as the training issues there.
Sort of cluster approach. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a good thought.
I have two things. One is with regards to IMTMA, like IMTMA can develop the metal cutting skills, but there are other domains as well in the manufacturing arena. So like I don't know where to go if we have to develop the casting, the
Foundries.
painting worldwide it is not there, painting except for few institutes in Germany, painting or surface finish. See, other manufacturing processes are not there yet. IMTMA's metal cutting, it's definitely for metal cutting, it is one of the best engineering skill centers, I would say. It is not about machining alone, no, the engineering behind machining also. So this is, and so I think that is what
Sure.
I thought I'll
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thanks a lot for contribution from each one of you.
One last
Yeah,
say, I
please.
guess.
Yeah.
See, this is particularly with regards to, because now whatever we discussed so far is about industry ready or role ready, but the roles are changing, the domains are changing very fast. So I was going through a future ready report by NUS Singapore. What they say is for the graduates, they are focusing. These are all the four skills that are very, very important. One is curiosity, because domains are changing. Now something else will come. The complete, instead of metal cutting, we might go for completely 3D printing in future.
Sure.
So that way, having curiosity, what is happening in my area, being aware of that is just one very important thing. Second is empathy. What they say is, how do we connect with hearts? Customer understanding, Professor mentioned earlier. So this is a very, very important skill. How to develop is definitely a challenge. And then third thing is insight. How to draw insights, thinking strategically. So this is another thinking or drawing insights is. And then fourth thing they talk about is determination. Means, see, as student, no, they would have seen some failure or they wouldn't have seen the failure. So, but in real life, failures are likely to be there. So how to really, again, bounce back from the failures. This, they call it as determination. I think these are all the four skills NUS says these are all the future, because let domain change, whatever happen, we are ready as human beings.
Learning to learn is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for each one of your contribution. To summarize, I think the major points are like this. Again, Mr. Kamath highlighted about the need of training in both application-oriented skills or hard skills as well as soft skills in terms of interpersonal skills, communication skills, so that they can perform better in the industries. And as principal highlighted, employability needs to be taken up right from the beginning itself, again in terms of assessing the performance, monitoring and continuous improvement. And Professor Vijay Kumar brought out a nice point, like defining who is the customer, like corporate is the end customer and how the students are going to be the throughputs. So they should be transformed into as per the requirements of the corporate sector. And we also highlighted about the 7 major players involved. And Mr. Shivaprasad highlighted about the collaborative education model between the industry as well as the institutions, which the right from curriculum development, curricular activities, co-curricular and extracurricular activities, how they can be mapped to suit the requirement of a particular industry. And the training required for the students, right, other than the pure academic works in terms of teamwork, cross-functional teams approach, and the so that there is no cultural shock when they come to the corporate world or the industry world. And yes, as on today, there is a mismatch between the demand and supply, as Dr. Mohan Babu highlighted. Yes, the overcapacity has been established for whatever reasons, and now I am sure the course correction is happening, and only the best performers are going to be retained and on a sustainable basis. And it's very nice points have emerged. I am sure we understand the industry's prevailing situation, and And Mr. M.N. Shivaprasad highlighted about the not only today's ready, but how about to be future ready. It's a nice concept he has brought in, wherein the engineers need to be curious, then with empathy as well as the determination to succeed without insights and insightfulness. Yeah. Thank you so
Ultimately,
much.
ownership for
Yeah.
learning is the individual. So how to transfer the ownership of learning to the individual is the most.
That's very important.
That's
I
very,
think,
very
because,
important.
Because
It
when,
is not the parents, it is
organizations-
not the professors,
yeah.
it is not the industry.
organizations
The
say you got-
ownership of learning is how to transfer the ownership.
So we are only facilitators.
Yes.
Yeah, students
said.
have got to take the ownership
Yes,
of this. Yes,
yes.
Well
exactly.
said,
Because
yeah.
they don't appreciate the time, the effort, and the money spent by
Yes.
the colleges
Yeah.
on them, because they are not at all serious. Well, how is
Yeah.
it going to help us?
Well
Yeah.
said, yeah.
So that
Just
is-
to add, till they come to the final year, they do not even realize that they become unemployable if this is the way that we progress. But by that time,
That's
they would have lost a very valuable time.
Yeah.
If the stakeholders like all of us, educate them right from the first day that, okay, your performance is linked to either your capability to be an entrepreneur or maybe to get an employment,
Yeah.
then I think things will be in
we were
place.
also talking about curriculum. Mr. Kamath
Yeah,
was saying
yeah.
about curriculum, revamping the curriculum
Yeah.
on a regular basis. But what I think can also be done by the university and from the government level itself is to build in employability within the curriculum itself.
Yeah.
So you can create what is called as an employability plan within the curriculum
Yeah.
itself. And then each of the colleges or the university itself form what is called as a task force. It's TAASK. That's the-
Steering
just-
committee
just
or
an-
task force.
task-
Yeah.
like it's I just got it here. Is technical assessment of aptitude, skills, and knowledge.
Okay.
TAASK, technical aptitude. That's where sir was just talking about some of those rating agencies. So we can all pull in. It's very important that all of the 7 stakeholders understand that it is their problem as well. Like we were using, I think Krishnamurthy sir was just talking about, because people talk about industry institute interaction. I think the word there, interaction, is a misnomer. It's got to be collaboration. Because only when you talk about collaboration, you get this ownership feeling. So it's mine. You're helping them, but you're helping myself as well, you see.
Yeah.
I think that has got to come.
And
Thank you.
also, like
Yeah.
if you see the other countries, how it is you can see there is an ecosystem. Like for example, I was in Coventry last month. Like so, Coventry is a place. Lot of automotive industries are there. Jaguar is there, and the institutes also have that kind of skills. So, is another thought like the how to have the institutes and the related industries and related, so that that provides maybe another
There's
thought.
another far thought I was saying. I don't know how far that could be applicable. We are also talking about clusters.
Yeah.
We talk about
Yeah.
clusters.
Yeah.
And when you go to export, people talk about geographical areas. They pull in. So I was thinking, but the industries, and industries come up together and take up a geographical area and within which they have universities, and then they tend to the requirements of the universities within that geographical area, train the students there, and also employ students from that particular thing. So you can have clusters, areas. For example, you have colleges in Yelahanka, colleges in the south, colleges in
Yeah.
the north. So you can subdivide the geographical area of Bangalore city or whichever throughout India into this kind of small groups, and corporates within that area or near that area can take up the challenge.
The
But this is
immersion
something.
of faculty and students happens in the ecosystem.
Yes, yeah. So this is something that has to come from a higher up. The government, for instance, they've got to drive it. They've got to say, guys, you do it. If not,
Maybe the market forces will determine that would be the way that we should be working in the day to come. We don't know.
That is right.
Good. Yeah. 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 As mentioned at the beginning, yes, as IMTMA, you would be keen in collaborating with institutions as well as the university. I think you highlighted about the collaboration required from the associations to the university level. Definitely, we will consider that and we will look into that. And we are keen to handhold with the educational institutions to establish the necessary infrastructure and to keeping in mind the making the engineers industry ready. And as on date, 3 courses are available at IMTMA to make the engineers industry ready in 3 domains: production engineering, automation and robotics, and machine tool design. And apart from that, one more possibility for faculty can take part in the open house calendar programs. Each program will be of 2 days duration. Every month 15 programs are happening, and I am sure that would be a good opportunity for the faculty to listen to the industry experts who deliver the program with a rich industry expertise of 3 to 4 decades. That could be considered for the faculty. As an association, IMTMA extends 50% concession in the course fee to the faculty or from engineering colleges. And one more new initiative of IMTMA is on e-learning. Web-based learning platform has been developed. It is a boon to the engineering students, so that without disturbing their working hours, they can spend time and they can learn from their desk, and they can get prepared as per the requirements of the industry right from the second year onwards, so that the employability skills and placement chances can be much better. And they are also available at a pricing, extremely affordable pricing, which nobody can say no. And we invite the institutions to take advantage of the training facilities at IMTMA. And I thank all the panel members for accepting the invitation and to be here and shared your experience as well as views. I am sure it will definitely help going forward to form a collaborative link. I should not use the word interaction, collaboration between the institutions and the industry in the coming days to come. We look forward to your continued support and guidance. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.